Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the order for the St. John Plan Commission for May 3rd. If we could all rise, if able, for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A new touch, if able. My daughter's commencement, at my daughter's commencement, they said, if able. I'm like, well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I was impressed.
All right, next we have roll calls. Roll call, please.
Here.
Start over.
Sure.
Roll call, please.
Bob Burleson,
Here.
Yolanda Cardona,
Here.
John Gill,
Here.
Joe Gomestego,
Here.
Bob Valois,
Here.
Jenna Lordson,
Here.
John Kennedy,
Here?
Attorney Adam Decker,
Here.
Engineer John Dykstra,
Here.
Councilman Liaison Brian Blazak,
Present.
and Town Manager Joe Wizawati.
Present. 7 members, we have a quorum. Next on the agenda, we have minutes. We have April 5th, 2023 Plan Commission regular minute meetings. If everyone had an opportunity to review, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the April 5th, 2023 Plan Commission regular meeting minutes.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
I got a second by Bob. Discussion, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries 7-0. Next on the agenda, we have minutes for the April 9, 2023 Plan Commission study session. Everyone had opportunity to review. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve April 19th, 2023 study session meeting minutes.
I have a motion to approve the study session for April 19, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
I got a second by Bob Valois. Discussion? Comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. Next on the agenda, we have public hearings. John, can you do me a favor? There's sign-in sheets, just in case if anyone signed in. Can you hand those to me, please? If you didn't sign in and you still want to speak, don't worry. I will ask anyone from the audience who would want to speak.
They're all blank.
Okay, then thanks. So next on the agenda, we will have 2 public hearings. First on the agenda is we have Streamside. Streamside is a proposed preliminary plat of Streamside, a 54 single-family residential lot subdivision at West 12811 109th Dyer, Indiana, approximately 500 feet south of the southwest corner of West 109th Avenue and White Oak Avenue. And just for the general public and everyone's understanding, once we open the public hearing, we will ask anybody if they want to come up. I would just ask that when you address the podium, you make comments and suggestions to the board. This is not an opportunity to have a discussion or have an interlogue with the petitioner. If there's questions, we will write them down, and then after the public hearing is closed, the petitioner then gets an opportunity, and we will make him or request that he address some of the concerns that the individuals have. So please just, again, just make sure you address the dais, and then we will make sure your questions and concerns are answered to the best of our ability. All right, with that, we have the petitioner, Jeff Yatsko. Mr. Yatsko, how are you this evening?
Good.
So, Mr. Yatsko, if you can give us a rundown of the request for the public hearing.
Sure. Again, this is Jeff. I'm Jeff Yatsko, Olthoff Homes. We are here tonight seeking approval for the 54-lot Streamside subdivision located at the southwest corner of 109th and White Oak. I know we've had several meetings here, but for the benefit of any of the public that's here for this petition tonight, I'll just kind of run through and recap this community. So again, this community was given RC2 PUD zoning, and all of the 54 lots do meet that that PUD zoning. There are two connections to this community. There's one connection off of White Oak, and then there's a second connection that will go into Summerlin Estates on the dead-end road that was provided for any future connection to the east. This parcel is 35.5 acres. Some of the site amenities that Streamside will include is a playground. We have interior paved walking trails. We have extensive landscaping on the open spaces and streetscape. We did commit to exterior sidewalks along 109th and White Oak, which do also include the homestead that we currently do own, but is not part of this community, but it will get sidewalks. We also committed to ornamental street lighting, so that'll match the same kind of street lights in Silverleaf and Summerlin Estates. And then we are preserving quite a bit of open space, so we are impacting a little bit of wetlands. Some of that is along 109th in order to get the sidewalk installed, so we would impact just the right-of-way of wetlands. And we would be impacting just a corner of the southwest there where we make our connection into Summerlin Estates. That permit is actually into IDEM already. It's sitting in public hearing till the 17th of May, and then we should hear something right after that. So again, but that permit has already been submitted to IDEM. Some of the features that were committed, again, as part of the zoning, and it's also embedded in our CCRs, our covenants and restrictions for this community. So these homes will include a minimum of a 2.5 car garage. We did commit to front yard irrigation on all of the homes. The homes do have a minimum of 30% masonry on the front. All other exterior surfaces will be LP siding or hardy plank, so there is no vinyl siding. Some of the lot requirements that we included, there's 14 lots that we've identified that will back up to either 109th or White Oak. So that would be like lots 9, 10, 11, 15 through 19, and then 21 around the corner. All of those would include some kind of bump out on the exterior of the rear. So it would be either a sunroom or a breakfast nook or something, so that we wouldn't have like a flat wall all the way across the home. These lots will only have aluminum open style picket fences, so there will be no PVC fences allowed. And any pools will be in ground, so there's no above ground pools. And again, so that language was written into the PUD, and it's also written into the covenants and restrictions. So homeowners should be fully aware of what the requirements of this community are. One of the items that was brought up at the study session was the dedication of the right-of-way of the homestead that we own at the corner. I just wanted to let you know that I did provide a right-of-way document for that. I believe it has been reviewed by legal. Currently, the legal description is being reviewed by your engineer. So again, we fully commit to providing that right-of-way. If it is a condition of the approval of this, that would be completely fine. Again, that document is just in review right now, so that's why we couldn't execute it before tonight. But we fully intend to sign that document, which does also include a triangle for the proposed roundabout that would go at that intersection. Other than that, I think that is pretty much a recap of everything that we've discussed. We have gone through the comments. I believe at this point we've addressed the comments that we had engineering-wise. There were just a few things that we just simply couldn't do before tonight. One of the things was they asked for the wetland permit. Again, that's at IDEM right now, so we do not have a wetland permit yet, but that's only going to affect the site if we try to move any kind of material inside of the wetland. We were also asked for a engineer's estimate, but I hesitated on providing an engineer's estimate. Usually that comes closer to the final plat. Until we know that the plans are fully approved, then of course I will provide an engineer's estimate for review. But really that shouldn't, that really doesn't come into the primary plat at all. So I can entertain any questions from the commission or from the public after the public hearing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yatsko. Questions from the board? Comments? Mr. Yatsko, So this was a R2 PUD. The document you sent, 67 pages. So I'm asking, is that the exact document that was provided for the RC PUD that is in the document? There's been no changes or alterations to that document. So whatever you guys committed to during the zoning of the 62 page, R2 PUD is still accurate, complete for this plat?
Yeah, that document was attached to the ordinance. The ordinance was recorded.
Okay.
I believe it was recorded, but it is part of the ordinance that was approved. And we are meeting all the criteria as a part of that zoning commitment.
Okay.
Mr. President, if you don't mind, I just add to what Mr. Yatsko is identifying. The ordinance is not recorded. We do not record the ordinances. And then back to the question, Jeff, there was some discrepancies, I think, minor discrepancies between the original CCRs that are in the PUD and then what is being presented. I know we had some discussion, or there were some emails regarding that. One being the black powder coated aluminum fence is identified in the new CCR, but not as part of the original PUD as attachment, I believe, F. Also, I think there's an addition to the CCRs that include solar panels. They were not in the original CCR, which attaches an attachment F to the PUD. And then there was some language regarding outdoor structures being prohibited. Has been taken out of the CCR because it's not part of the design standards. I believe that was some of the discussion. And then finally, there was the, and that's, I think there were design standards essentially, which also refers back to the plumbing stacks and roof vents, ventilators being on the rear side of the home. That is not identified in the PUD, so. As part of the attachment F to the, or the attachments to the PUD.
Yeah, the original CCRs that were submitted during the zoning, there were some changes that were happening during zoning. So we kind of gave a draft set of the CCRs that just kind of explain the language of the community. But as things got refined as part of the zoning commitment, then I refined the CCRs that we presented as a part of this petition, just to make sure that the language was included in both of them so that they matched. Because if we were to record the original CCRs, the draft copy that was done per zoning, they wouldn't match the PUD, and I don't know that we would want to do that.
So Sergio, help me out. So you're saying, you use the word discrepancies, which always scare me. So you're saying there's differences from what was proposed in the PUD zoning, which we see here now?
Correct. Minor changes, yes.
Minor changes?
Yeah.
Which, and when you, does that, the planning department needs to get resolved to make sure it's following what was approved for the zoning?
It would be ideal if those two match exactly in the language, so we probably would have to go back and amend the language that's an attachment to the PUD, as part of an attachment to the PUD, so that they reflect the new CCRs. So just those, or at least they're supported in the PUD, that's what's supported in the CCRs that be presented or given to the property owners. So that way the residents' CCRs and the town's ordinance support each other.
Right.
So, but we can probably amend that as this moves forward, and prior to maybe even issuing a building permit, so that way the residents are familiar with that.
Okay, for that update. John, I'm looking at your letter of review too. Is this not the final?
This was the last one that was sent around. This was dated April 27th. We did receive another set of plans on the 28th, last Friday. We have looked at those and essentially reviewed the comments that were addressed by that change. And we did clear those comments, but we were unable to finalize the next letter, which would be a satisfactory recommendation letter. So, and Jeff mentioned the three small items that are mentioned as conditional, which are very minor, relatively speaking, that they don't affect much of the development.
Okay.
So, we would expect for sure by next time. So.
Okay.
And just to confirm, we are reviewing the on the right-of-way on the corner. We are reviewing that legal description. It's in with my surveyor. So
Okay. All right, before I open it up to public comment and I let Mr. Yasko sit down, is there any other questions or comments with what you've heard? Anything else for the good of the cause?
Just a quick question with respect to irrigation sprinklers. Is there a requirement for irrigation sprinkler meters? Or do they just,
No, as long as they have a backflow preventer, nothing says you have to have a dedicated irrigation meter. It is cheaper in the long run on the bill because you're not paying the sanitary fee
right,
with that, but we don't have anything that forces a resident or builder to use an irrigation
so there's no
meter.
requirement for that, that's all.
Correct.
My question.
But this is its own zoning. Do we recall if that was included? Because I recall that we had that discussion during the rezone.
Yeah,
I think that was for the
The general, just public area.
public areas.
Gotcha, okay, okay.
And I think it was discussed not to have irrigation, right, Robert?
I'm sorry, what?
Was it discussed not to have irrigation on the public areas?
I
I don't,
I
I'm trying to
can't remember if
that.
it was this development or,
I think it was, but it was a
I
while
think it
ago.
was.
it was a long time ago, yes.
I can
Is-
comment
is-
on that.
Go ahead.
As part of our zoning, we committed to irrigating the entrance off of White Oak. So where our sign will be and around,
You want to pull up that map?
so both sides of the entrance will be irrigated.
Gotcha.
We're not irrigating anything on 109th, but the entrance landscaping and everything is irrigated. That's part of
Okay.
this plan as well.
Thank you, Mr. Yasko.
Okay.
All right,
Hold on right there, sir.
Oh.
And another question with
Yep.
that DXL lane. Is that gonna run all the way through there, or has that been decided as far as the turn lane that's coming into the subdivision? Or is that gonna be extended at all, or is that gonna be the extent of it?
The deceleration or the acceleration lane?
Yes.
So we had a traffic study done from First Group that took a look at our planned improvements on White Oak.
Okay.
We provided that traffic study, but they took a look at the geometry of that and thought that there were no changes that were necessary.
And those are gonna be curbed as well?
Yes, they will be curbs on the back of the acceleration and deceleration lanes and the taper.
so you bring up a good, Joe, you bring up a good point. Jeff, I know we talked about this in study session regarding waivers for curb along 109th as well as White Oak. And you know, you made logical understanding of this road's gonna be redone, but this board has made waivers like taboo. And so it's understanding to make, we're trying to reduce any waivers, right? We want curbs and gutters, we want sidewalks in there, so, I don't know what the understanding of the board is, you know how we are with sidewalks. We talked about it a little bit, we just discussed only the decel and XL lanes curb, but, we hold, we make an exception here, and then it just trickle effects in the future, so that's just my 2 cents. But then I was also, we talked about the road reconstruction, so talking with staff, you have the intersection, so I got a better detail of the roundabout, and that roadway is gonna be approved all the way down, 500 feet south. So then a suggestion was, what, is there consideration for Altoff Home expanding the road to your property line instead of just including an XL decel? For consideration. And then just marking it as a decel XL lane. That, I don't need an answer today, but just understanding, thinking, with the roadway improvement coming all the way down to your property line and then extending that
The
farther
fact of the
south.
matter is, when you have a bunch of subdivisions coming in, frankly, it gets expensive for the municipality to go in and then improve that area. When you're trying to do the improvement there now, you do it now, and then when we add on to it, we can add up to it and not have to improve through that subdivision in that area. So that's kind of the logic behind it.
So, don't need an answer now, just
Okay.
consideration, I would say. And
We
then
would
just
for sure
the-
consider that.
Yes,
Where
okay.
does 500 feet bring us?
I think
From 109th?
I think right,
Jeff, can you answer that?
So I believe our homestead is the
Right here.
north 300 and, let me check real quick. I believe that's 350 feet plus 100. Yeah, so 500 feet is going to take you pretty much to that point right there.
To that
It's going to be
point.
pretty close.
so then if there's consideration, instead of just curbing it here and then doing a decel XL, seeing if there would be consideration from the developer to just run the whole street.
Yeah, it makes
and then-
sense.
And then to stripe it
Yeah,
as a decel.
yeah, it makes
And
sense.
just for the, guys, back in the day, 93rd, the Continental, there's that one lot on 93rd. I always don't like pinch points, or not points where traffic access points. So in the future, when we have a situation like this and we know the road is gonna be improved, we should probably ask for that potential, like, additional right-of-way for a decel lane. This road is potentially gonna be 3 lanes, right? So if someone wants to come south, turn right, we just don't want backups. We don't want people slowing down.
No.
There would be a 3rd lane, so just, we get smarter as we go through this process, right? And so just future consideration. Any others?
Yeah, it would make sense that whoever's designing the intersection of 109th and White Oak to talk to Jeff's engineer, Holtoff's
Yeah, they would
engineer.
just, I would imagine they're following town specs for the roadway and
Yeah.
then just improve it. If Altoff would consider just, instead of doing the decel, just take the road all the way down to their end of the property line and then striping it as a decel XL.
It just makes sense, I think.
Okay. I like when things make sense. Questions, comments? You'll have Mr. Yatsko sit down. All right. Sergio, we're ready for public comment, or this is ready for a public hearing?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing. If anybody wants to speak at the public hearing, once it's open,
For
come
this.
to the podium, name, address, make your public comment, please address the board. Questions, we'll write them down. Mr. Yatsko will remember them. And then once the public hearing is done, Mr. Yatsko will come up, address any concerns, questions that we might have from your comments, and then we'll move forward. So, at this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing for Streamside. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment regarding Streamside? Preliminary plat for a 54 single-family residential lot subdivision. Sergio, have we received any correspondence electronically?
We have not.
I will make a second call. Anyone want to make public comment regarding the proposed preliminary plat for Streamside? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Anyone want to make public comment? Seeing or hearing no one, step up. Public comment is now closed regarding Streamside. Mr. Yatsko, you don't have to answer any questions or concerns, I guess.
He's answered a lot of it already.
Yeah, that's very good.
I can answer all of those questions for you.
Very good. Mr. Yatsko, one of my big concerns is, in past practice, we try to have a satisfactory letter from our engineer. I know they're minor, but I have just for the board's understanding, we had an issue where I didn't ask for that preliminary plat, or the satisfactory letter, and it bit us, and I'm trying to avoid that again. So I know they're minor contingencies. It sounds like we have discrepancies. We had the public hearing, no comment. He's still going through his IDEM permit.
John needs a review.
Yeah, we don't have that final.
Final,
And
yeah.
it's minor.
If I could just make
Yeah,
a quick
absolutely,
comment.
absolutely.
So the couple of contingent items that are on the list, those are typically not things that are asked for at a primary plat. They're not part of the checklist. We're never asked for our wetland permit when we ask for primary plat approval. We've never been asked for the engineer's estimate at the time of primary plat approval. So some of these caught me by surprise, and quite frankly, I couldn't even provide the wetland permit because I don't have it yet. So I just kind of feel like some of these issues are a little outside of that.
Sergio, John, I mean, do we require that as part of the preliminary plat?
They probably were extended beyond. It's a common comment to bring up wetlands and an estimate. and perhaps it hasn't been traditionally part of the primary plat, and so I agree they're minor at this point. So if the board's preference is that we don't expand on the checklist,
I just don't want to make, I want to make sure that he's given a fair opportunity. If it's not part of our checklist and we're adding it at the end, I don't know if that's the right approach either. I'm concerned, I mean, I want to make sure though that the zoning, this primary plat matches the zoning, and if there's discrepancies there. So I'm just trying to make sure we're doing it the right way, appropriate to the developer as well as the town's interest, so.
okay, well, I mean,
so
speaking to
subject-
wetlands, wetlands, a permit for wetlands is required before you would begin construction. And what's the point in between where that would be addressed once primary plat, if primary plat was approved, it wouldn't be a final plat issue, it has to be somewhere in between, so, what's the official step for the wetland approval document to be in hand? So I saw a bit of a conundrum with that, because primary plat then begins going into the direction of starting construction, correct? So you'd have to have your wetland permit before you do that.
Okay,
So it seems natural to include it at this point.
okay.
That's correct, though, but if we were only impacting a small amount of wetlands, we could stay out
Yeah,
of the
you would
wetlands.
flag it off or.
Right, we
or
could definitely
something.
flag
Yeah,
off the wetlands and move dirt.
Yeah,
I just feel like that's a condition that's not part of the town's checklist and kind of being held to that, and and that holding up the primary plat would be a little concerning, just because, you know, we can work outside the wetlands, and IDEM and the Army Corps would not have any problem with us doing that.
What were the other concerns you had besides
an
wetlands?
estimate?
Estimate, and so do we require that on our checklist?
No, it's not on the
Okay.
checklist.
And what was the third one? I thought you said.
The letter of intent for the easement on the east side of White Oak for the water main.
Okay. And then Sergio, your discrepancies are related to the zoning and making sure they're,
The proposed CCRs are the same as, or support what, that the new CCRs are supported by the attachments to the PUD ordinance, the zone itself. So
Wasn't there another item, John, that surveyor was gonna review the roundabout right-of-way
Description.
Oh, on
description?
the the corner lot or homestead lot, whatever you're referring to.
That's
that
another
was-
item.
Yeah,
right.
that was technically not part of Streamside. It's a separate issue.
Okay.
But there's a loose connection, and we are reviewing it, but we're keeping it separate
Okay.
from these review letters, so.
all right. I'll bring it back to the board. We have a review number 2 letter, which is not final, for consideration. I could read that for the public record and I'll read that, understanding, but then our options are still approval, deferral, approval with conditions. So I'll read the letter, and then we'll go from there, just so it's a part of public record. Dear Plan Commission, as requested, Robinson Engineering has reviewed the primary plat improvement plans and stormwater management report, traffic study, wetland documentation, and partially the landscape plan for the document revised electronically for the above referenced project. The SWIP and its related document was not reviewed but will be reviewed separately. Items received: proposed improvement for streamlined subdivision by Manhard Consulting, dated 4/24/23. Final stormwater management report for Streamside subdivision by Manhard Consulting, dated 4/24/23. Primary plat of Streamside subdivision for Manhard Consulting, dated 4/24/23. Landscape plan for Streamside by Gary Weber, R. Weber and Associated, dated 4/24/23. Traffic impact study for Streamside subdivision by First Group Engineering, dated 3/22/23. Revised revision. Auto turn exhibit by Manhard Consulting, dated 4/21. 23, lighting plan, part of plan set by Manhard Consulting dated 4/24/23, and comment response letter by Manhard Consulting, letter dated 4/25/23. Primary plan sheet, 3 sheets, conditionally compliant. Comments on the primary plat have been embedded in the attached document PDF file. The applicant should review the document for any new comments, but it is understood that certain comments would be addressed in the final plat. Applicant to please confirm. Conditionally compliant. Provide the engineer estimate of probable construction costs. Applicant to provide once plans are approved and prior to start of construction. Sanitary sewer, 3, extend the sanitary sewer on White Oak Avenue to the northern property line. 4, water main, add an 8-inch valve on the south leg of the T connection at 109th Avenue. 5, provide a 40-foot wide public easement for a 12-foot water main on White Oak Avenue.
12-inch.
I'm sorry, 12-inch. Sorry, 12 feet would be a big one. The material standard table on sheet 28 of 32 does not match the St. John subdivision control ordinance in several instances. Fire hydrant, gate valve, tapping saddle, corp cock, called such an SCO, but maybe corp valve in list. Curb stop and stop box, called such an SCO. Specify the items in accordance with the SCO or confirm that they are same, or provide a verification that the items that deleted from those listed in the SCO are acceptable to the town. Replace all applicable water bowl details with the details provided in the SCO. For example, the hydrant details on the plan showed 18-inch from finished grade to the pumper nozzle, but the town detail shows 24. Wetlands, conditionally compliant. Wetlands A and B on-site have been classified as Class 2 emergent wetlands and under jurisdiction of IDEM. Provide a copy of the permit from IDEM when received. The applicant has applied for an IDEM permit. The public notice will end 5/17/23. The applicant to provide copy of the permit when received. Should you have any questions, please contact me at your convenience, Mr. Nagel. Real quick, materials. John, item 6, specify the items, confirm that they are same, or provide, we'll have to do that.
Yeah,
Those lists
Since
are
the da-
acceptable to the town.
yeah, since the time of this review letter, as I had mentioned, they responded with plans the next day on the 28th, that was last Friday. And we cleared comment 3, 4, 6, and 7 were all addressed by your engineering team. And those are gone. So, and then the one concerning the primary plat from a surveyor perspective, because those pertain to the final plat, we removed that comment as well. So, because they have addressed all the primary plat concerns and comments, so it remained with only final comments for the final plat, I mean, that remained, so. And then the 3 small items. Yeah.
All right. I don't know how to approach this. I don't want to put the onus on the developer if we're asking for, when did you ask for these items from the developer? The wetland and was it a week ago, 3 weeks ago?
Well, they appeared from the beginning, from the first review, and they were in the second review with the updated comment, because we discussed them. And
John, do you know your first review letter? What was it dated? Do you know? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but
it was, I don't recall for certain. It was early April.
early April.
I want to say something like, I'm guessing April 5th, somewhere around there. Might have been the 14th.
So, Adam, question for you. I'm having a little conundrum. I want to make sure we're addressing the issues that are brought up by our town engineer to protect the interests of the town. At the same time, I want to make sure I'm being fair and equitable to the petitioner to make sure that we're not giving them any undue burden or cause that we don't follow, haven't followed, or, but can we just add items to request as part of the primary plat? Or is there some sort of standard that we need to follow from the checklist? But if our engineers ask for it and he's like, John, I don't have the final review letter for you, I don't know how to approach, I mean,
So, the applicable law requires the Plan Commission to review the application and to make a determination that the specifications as submitted are in accordance with the subdivision control ordinance. If the items requested, or the items that you've referred to as the contingencies that have been discussed, are not specifically set forth in the subdivision control ordinance, but the proposed subdivision otherwise complies with the standards set forth in the subdivision control ordinance, then the Plan Commission has effectively a duty to approve the primary plat of the subdivision. So in my estimation, based on the comments, if those items are not specifically set forth or required as part of the review as set forth in the subdivision control ordinance, I don't believe that those would be appropriate to withhold primary approval of the plat.
okay. Now going to Sergio's comments regarding discrepancies between the zoning, CRC or CCR, and now this. Is that something we need to address?
Well, I think so what makes this a bit unusual is the fact that it's planned unit development. So as a planned unit development, as part of the planned unit development plan, we require that the CCRs be provided and reviewed and considered by the Plan Commission and also by the Town Council. And so if there's some change or some deviation in what ultimately will be the final CCRs versus what was attached to the PUD development plan that was approved, several months ago, I think that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
But I would say that, again, I think as Sergio indicated, that can probably be addressed at some point in the future. I don't know that necessarily provides a basis to withhold or to deny, the approval of the primary plat. Again, it's review, and the decision of the Plan Commission should be based on whether or not the application and the checklist, I think that you were referred to, if those items have all been reviewed and they are, in essentially consistent with our subdivision control ordinance, then the Plan Commission has no discretion to deny the primary plat.
Questions, comments? So in the future, if the town engineer, the plan department want to add these other requirements, such as the environmental permitting, cost estimates, construction costs, we could add that to the checklist through our subdivision control ordinance, and then this type of discrepancy between what has been asked and what's on our checklist. Okay,
Yes.
okay. All right. Any questions or comments, or did I confuse everybody so badly that we don't know the direction to go? All right. This is a approval, denial, deferral option for this board. Included in our packet is, on the last page, the findings of facts. If, depending on the direction this board takes, please reference those if that the doing of the board. Additional questions or comments? Adam, as I understood your comments, if I understand if he's met our subdivision control ordinance, the issues regarding the discrepancies, is there much, the board can do what they,
Well, that's the commitment that the developer made to the town is embedded or contained within the PUD development.
but those discrepancies that Sergio reminds, is not concerning that we should at least get those addressed before this plan commission takes action in the CCR?
Yeah, you mean to submit the,
I'm just making, I hear what John's saying, I hear what Mr. Yatsko's saying, I'm hearing what Sergio's saying, and I just want to try to make sure we're doing the right thing, or this board is making the right decision at the right time. And so I'm just trying to, I didn't realize some of these items were not included in our checklist that he's been asked, so. But the discrepancies is always concerning when I want to make sure that because this is I want to make sure all the commitments that were made for the approval of this PUD are met in this plat. And so if there's discrepancies in those, whether they're minor or not, I'm concerned about approving them. Regarding John's comments, it sounds like the items are minor. They've been asked on addition to our checklist, so is that above and beyond what the petitioner needs to supply? I just think the board is just stuck right now.
Can there be maybe the proposal to proceed forward with it and just specify that those things that Sergio was talking about be, I guess, in some way consistent with what was previously submitted? I guess that could be a contingency.
You would make a
Because-
contingency.
Because what it sounds like Adam is saying to me is that there's no actual basis for us to not move it forward.
We have done approvals in the past based on contingencies. We just try to stop that, right? We just try to make sure,
Right.
let's put all our ducks in a row, whether they're minor or not, just let's work through this. And I don't know if those discrepancies were given to the petitioner, have not been addressed to the town.
There's been communication, so, but as Attorney Decker and we mentioned earlier, that's a separate matter that we can work with the applicant, especially prior to issuing a occupancy or building permit, so that way whoever occupies that home with the CCRs are in line with the CCRs that are part of the covenant, or I'm sorry, part of the PUD ordinance, or the rezone itself, so.
I just hate doing contingencies.
I guess my hang-up is on White Oak. The town's doing improvements at that intersection going 500 feet. And the developer has a de-acceleration lane for his entrance, but eventually that needs to connect up to the town, improvements for that intersection.
I did
Is
tell
the
him not
town-
to give
is-
us an answer today, so
Is the town stuck, by what Joe said of flipping the cost to extend that down 400 feet to the, extra from the intersection or from the north property line of this development? I don't want to muddy the waters anymore, but
My question here would be, is what impact would it have on you if we defer it till these are answered?
So I guess there's really no impact if you have to defer it.
Okay.
But the wetland permit, like I said, is something I couldn't even provide right now until we obtain that. The question with the CCRs, this is where we always get hung up when we're asked for CCRs at the time of zoning, is that sometimes when we're here and we're trying to go through zoning, certain things are being changed and committed to until we get to that final PUD. So we're not looking to change anything that was committed as part of the PUD development. But the CCRs that are submitted, the problem is they're in draft format because we can't, as we're trying to amend the PUD and get that language correct, we have this draft set of CCRs that are sitting there. And unfortunately, sometimes they get embedded in, like is what happened with this community. Well, as we got to this step, we amended the covenants so that they actually, if we were to go and record the covenants that were submitted as part of the zoning, they would not match the PUD development. And then we'd have a problem, because we'd have certain things that were committed to in the CCRs and other things that were committed to, which are actually higher things in the PUD development plan. So we don't want to do that, obviously. So we just refined the CCRs, and I submitted them, because the CCRs are not recorded, obviously, not yet. So we just refined the CCRs so that they truly matched the PUD development plan, so that both sets of documents match. Because again, the ones that are part of, if you went to the, like I said, if you go to the zoning packet right now, those CCRs do not match. And I don't know that we want that. So we want to make sure that those things match. And the CCRs that I provided back with our first submittal, and I believe those were reviewed, and a couple things were picked up that they were different because now they match the PUD development agreement. And so that would be the set that would be recorded. So if it was, if I was asked to come back and just amend the PUD document to bring those new CCNRs in, I mean, we can do that, but that, to me, that doesn't change the primary plat, because that's the PUD agreement. And again, we're abiding to the PUD agreement. We didn't change anything in the PUD agreement. So that language was still there, it's still valid, and everything you see in these plans matches that. But, it's just when we try to get those CCRs in too early, and we still couldn't even commit to a full set of CCRs, because we still need like recording information and things like that. So that's why sometimes these can't get recorded until a later date, just because we still have information to put in there, community space, which lots are going to be included, things like that. So, so we can do that if we need to amend the PUD in order to add those, refined CCRs in there, we can, but I don't.
But like the lighting, I saw the lighting plan was included in the packet that we received, so that's all meets the standard of the PUD.
Yes, we provided a lighting plan. I actually had a couple conversations with Bob Davis. He asked us to go to LED lighting. So we provided photometrics for LED lighting, because in fact, the high-pressure sodium bulbs are starting to become obsolete. So he asked us to do that. So we moved to the LED. Same lamp, looks exactly the same, but it's just an LED light. So that's been included as well.
And the conversation regarding extension of White Oak, what do you think the position of Altough would be of extending the roadway to the property line?
The deceleration lane?
Extending that roadway through your property line on West Oak, the roadway improvements, White Oak, from where the 500 feet extends off of, instead of just doing a decel lane, since that roadway improvement that the town's doing.
I don't think we would have a problem extending that. Obviously, we'd have to be given some geometrics of the roundabout in order to get our improvements in the right spot. But if you needed me to take that deceleration lane up to the south edge of the Irwin parcel, I don't see that would be a problem. And then again, we would match whatever geometrics would be part of the roundabout.
And the decel lane, the XL lane on this, would you be committed or to take it all the way down to your property line to the south? Just roadway improvement all the way down to your property line, so that the roadway improvement would be all the way down to your.
The whole White Oak footage.
Yeah,
Frontage.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's a proper way to say it.
It's something that we could definitely take a look at. I don't know what kind of roadside drainage there is, so it would be hard for me to commit to that standing here, because it looks like we have a flared end section picking up a roadside ditch. And again, I don't know what kind of improvements the town is looking at on White Oak. It's nothing that I don't think we're against, but we would just need to know what kind of geometric plan the town has, in that area.
You said you had a traffic study, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay,
So
well,
First Group Engineering reviewed our traffic study, the traffic movements in and out of our community and through Summerlin.
what year was that?
And they looked at that plan and said that the acceleration and deceleration lane based upon the amount of traffic generated and the speeds on White Oak, that the geometry of that was sufficient as shown, and they did not require any other improvements.
May I ask you, what year was that study was done?
What year?
Yes, sir.
March.
March
of this year.
This year?
Yeah, they just took a look at that.
Mr. Yatsko, I apologize for the back and forth. I appreciate your understanding regarding the checklist, because that shouldn't be a hindrance to your approval. PUDs is a sensitive subject. The discrepancies, I never like to hear that word, and I understand you're saying it's not part of the plat. I would just like to get our ducks in a row. I'm trying to make sure this board is dotting their i's, crossing their t's, and we not always do it right, but we try to do it the best we can. So at this time, I don't know if it's best to do a deferral, get all these issues resolved. Unfortunately, you made the comment, it's not gonna hurt you. And I don't want to, but
I think it was
so we can get these issues resolved. That's just my opinion, and I'll leave it up to the board to move
If I
forward.
may add with what you just said here, and I think what you said, it wouldn't hurt you to get all these things done and then approach us again, because then at least it'll give us a little bit of comfort feeling for the street and everything else, CCRs. I think that's all I feel, and it's not bad, sir, because that question I asked you, it's going to hinder you by delaying it. You said, no, perhaps we could work it out like that. Perhaps, you could approach us to that.
I understand. I guess I'll just need some direction, and I don't need it tonight. I'll talk to staff, but I'm just going to need some direction on what actually needs to be worked out. If I'm being asked to provide things that are outside of the subdivision control ordinance, or if I'm not, so.
And that's something I'm learning tonight, because I don't have a final letter. I know in the study session, I said, or Jeff, that, I don't like approving anything that's not final. I hear tonight that some of the stuff that's not included in this letter is not in our checklist. And so I'm trying to balance your legitimate claims regarding what our engineer is now asking for and the discrepancies of our staff, town planner. So I'm trying to, minimize the hurt all across, not hurt, but just trying to do the proper things, so. With that, is there any other questions, comments, motions? We have, again, we could approve with contingencies, deny, I don't know if that's an option, or defer.
Like to make a motion to defer Streamside preliminary plat.
I have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll give it to Jenna. Questions, comments? Can I get a roll call on this one, Sergio?
Bob Rolson,
Yes.
Yolanda Cardona,
No.
John Gill,
Yes.
Joe Gomestego,
Yes.
Bob Valois,
Yes.
Jenna Lordson,
Yes.
John Kennedy.
Yes. Motion passes 6-1. Thank you, Mr. Yatsko. Next on the agenda.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have a public hearing for Artesian Wells Plat 6, proposed rezone from R2 Single Family Residential to C2 Highway Commercial District of a portion of Artesian Well Plat D of Lot 6. With us today, we have Mr. Kuiper. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
Another public hearing.
Love public hearings.
I don't think it was much of a public hearing other than a public board comment, so, okay.
A lot of discussion.
If you could
for no public
give us a
hearing.
rundown for the public hearing, please.
Good evening again, Tim Kuiper, Austin Kuiper Justitis here on behalf of Dale Lenting. Also tonight with me is project engineer Doug Reddick from DVG.
And Dale Lenting is also here tonight, along with 3 of his daughters, to observe government in action. So be careful, Mr. Kennedy.
They were probably like, I'm never doing this again, Dad. You're gonna owe me extra ice cream for this one. Make sure you get 2
I think
scoops
that's the
tonight.
plan. So, the notices and
Might be
publications.
closed before you get out, just.
So I'm going to try to get us out of here a little quicker than that last one. So notices and publications are in order for this item tonight, and the sign was posted on the property and provided to the town for compliance with that issue. The request tonight is for a rezoning from R2 to C2 on 2 acres of the larger property, as shown on the screen up there on 109th, slightly east of 41. When Mr. Lenting was going to purchase this property, had come into the town and inquired about the feasibility of having some of this property rezoned, and it was indicated that that shouldn't be a problem. So that's what the request is here tonight. That's why we're here. And he has a business that he would like to locate to part of this property. So with that being said, Indiana Code 3674-603 requires the Plan Commission to pay reasonable regard to 5 factors. Those factors are the comprehensive plan, the current conditions and character and current structures and uses in the district, the most desirable use for which the land in the district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the district, and responsible growth and development. Addressing those, the comprehensive plan does show this property remaining as R2, but most of the property along 231 is slated for this commercial use generally. The current conditions of the property lend itself to a zone change request previously along the corner of 41 and 231, where the gas station, the bank building, coin are located. Those were all converted from that R2. The property is sandwiched on the east by the railroad tracks. There is some residential immediately to the west. The most desirable use for this property would be commercial, fronting right on Route 231 or 109th. Property value conservation. The property values will be maintained for the residences near them and the remaining property here. That can be supported by the fact that when those other properties on 231 and 41 came in, again, the gas station, the bank building, coin, property values did not drop. In fact, they continue to increase along with the other properties in the area. And then finally, responsible growth and development. We believe that the way that the property is laid out, and again, just being a portion of that on the road, that lends itself again to consistent commercial use on Route 231, along with other development that's coming into that area. Part of what was submitted tonight does show a proposed layout of what it could look like if it was approved, and I don't know, not that screen, I'm sorry. But there's another slide that shows what would proposed building, the parking lot, and some of those things would look like, and that should be in your packet tonight. And then finally, if this was approved, there's still a lot of steps that have to be completed in order to allow this property to be used. So we have to go through subdivision approval. There's not only the C2 zoning regulations that we have to comply with, but there's also the Route 231 overlay regulations that we also have to comply with. So there's a number of steps to actually getting this property into use, assuming a favorable outcome tonight. So we are requesting a favorable recommendation to the town council on this item. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have, and happy to respond to any questions after the public hearing concludes.
Okay. Questions or comments?
You mentioned a parking lot layout, building layout in our packet. We don't have.
It's right on the screen. I'm sorry.
I know,
thought
but
it
we
was-
don't.
This one?
We don't.
I thought it was provided in your packet.
We don't have it,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Might be on the screen, but we don't have it here.
You were previously.
Okay.
And just for the board's understanding, this is just to rezone. As was mentioned, any building, anything would have to follow our zoning. So I know comments have been made about the exterior. I even brought up exterior selling of product. That would not be allowed in our district. So this is a recommendation. We only make a recommendation. The final decision goes to the town council. But again, we are only looking at zoning. This would take it from residential to commercial. And then after that, they would have to apply with all building within our town as well as the zoning district to meet those requirements unless waivers are given. So But yeah. Any more questions, comments?
Is this the one where, the property owner intends on doing like a tile store? Or am I thinking of the wrong one?
Correct.
That's
Yes,
correct.
that's correct.
Tile,
It is
okay.
the one.
Okay.
Did they fill that pond in at some point? Or was that pond filled in at some point?
It's
You
been modified. It used to be, I think, a U shape.
Yeah.
And just for the board's understanding on this, as I.
But I don't know
Is it
when.
a designated wet area, a wetland or anything like that?
You can make, with any recommendation on his, or if it's recommended, denial, you can make commitment request. Certain types of business not allowed in this zoning district, because right now it would go to C2, which would allow any C2 in there. So, just so you're understanding that our recommendation can come with commitment of a type of business if that is the direction of the board. So
Mr.
just.
Mr. Kennedy, if I could, there's also the Route 231 overlay, which further restricts what would be permittable uses under C2 that are not permitted, and they've switched over to special exceptions in the overlay district zoning.
Awesome.
And right now it's zoned R2.
It's zone
Okay.
R2, which is currently still R2 in our comp plan, which Mr. Kuiper correctly addressed. So, all right. Any other questions, comments?
There was a question regarding the shape of the,
There you
the,
Wow.
the area and if it was a wetland and just showing you the
Oh.
the configuration.
I don't know
there.
if does that have a wetland overlay, though?
No.
Is there a T
You
at
might
the
have
end
to
of
go to
T
the FEMA
box?
map or something like that.
There should be a green there. That looks like a nice.
Well, I mean,
hole.
if it would be, you'd have to look at the FEMA map. Have they done any kind of geotechnical work over there to even see it does state that that was a wetland? I kind of figured that. They filled in a wetland.
Wow.
Hmm.
All
Do
right.
you know anything about that pond there? Any story or how it was U-shaped and now it's just a straight eye?
No?
Was it filled in or?
It looks like it was filled in, and
It
looks like it-
it's filled in, but
It was relocated and
I
expanded.
wonder if that's high water area.
would there have been,
High table.
I guess I'm asking the engineer, if you're filling in a wetland area, is there a permitting process that should have been followed at that point? I don't know how long ago this was done, but
Typically, there would be an assessment done by a wetland consultant, and they would provide an opinion. It's possible, if it was
Thank you, sir.
wetland, it could have been determined to be isolated, which then the regulations are different on isolated wetlands. They usually are not as stringent, so not knowing what, if anything, that would have been classified as, it's hard to say.
And that's occurred in that current condition for about 6 or 7 years.
So was this done under, when your client owned this property, the relocating and reconfiguring of the pond? From a U shape to a, say, a kidney?
So it looks like,
Mr. Lenting, if you would address yourself as your
Dale
your
Lenting.
address. Thank you, sir.
so I just want to
10911.
add, commissioners, if you see your screen, October 2016, it's a U shape, and then February 18th, 2017, it's converted to the current state that it is now. So between October 16 and February 2017, there were some changes that occurred.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Lenting?
So we checked with the Army Corps engineer before we did anything, before we moved any dirt, and they said it was obviously a man-made lake or pond before we did anything, and so that anything we did to it was considered landscaping.
You have a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers saying that, or you just have what they told you over the phone or told you in person?
I would have to check my files, but it was about 7 years ago. But if you look at the pond, you can clearly see that that's a man-made shape.
I don't know.
There's one pretty close to here that was also filled in too, but I'd like to see that better.
I can look for
Any
it.
other questions, comments? All right, Mr. Kuiper, I'm gonna ask you to sit down. Sergio, is everything in order for this public hearing?
Yes.
Again, I will open up the public hearing. If you would like to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and your address for the record. Please address the board, and we will write down, and Tim will write down any questions or concerns you might have, and we will answer those after the public hearing is closed. So with that, I will now open the public hearing for Artesian Well Plat D, point of Lot 6. This is a proposed rezone from R2 Single Family Residential to C2 Highway Commercial District of a portion of Artesian Well Plat D of Lot 6, 10911 West 108th Avenue, St. John, Indiana, 7.82 acres.
Thank you, sir.
Fingers don't work as good as they used to.
I understand.
Thank you.
I think I was too short.
It's okay.
I don't need any more paper.
So, sir, if you don't mind, I'm going to read this into the record before you begin. It says, petition summary and background regarding the petition to rezone lots at 10911 West 108th Avenue in Artesian Well subdivision. It then states, actions petition for, I, the resident, am against the rezone of the lots in Artesian Well subdivision. I'm concerned about the congestion and the added traffic that it would bring. Also, there is a safety issue for the residents that enjoy spending time outside. We have kids in the neighborhood. Their safety should be considered. I'm going to read the names. Mr. Decker, should I read the names and address, or just read the names? How would you want me to approach this? Or do I have to read the names and address, or could I just accept that I've received this letter?
Right, I think the Plan Commission can accept and receive this petition summary and background, and it sets forth the names with what appear to be signatures and addresses. So I don't believe, if it's accepted by the Plan Commission as, you know, a document of remonstrance or some other evidence for purposes of today's hearing, that it's necessary for you to read each of the names and addresses in the document.
Do I need to get a motion to accept this, or could I just accept it?
Well, you're the chair of the meeting, so I think under Robert's rules, you have authority to accept it on behalf of the commission, but
Okay.
you can always put it up to a vote.
I'm going to accept this on behalf of the board. All right, let her accept it. Thank you, sir. Again, name and address for the record.
My name's Tim Neary. I'm at 11025 West 108th Avenue in St. John. I just got a few things. You know, we want to rezone this, but what assurances are we going to have on traffic? When you look at 231, you can't get out on 231 from our subdivision. So if he has a business, what's the thing you're going to do? You're going to zoom around the subdivision and go down behind the bank through that way to get on 41. People do it now. You're going to add that to it. I don't see where that's going to help us. You can't walk your dog. We can't walk. I walk usually at 8:30 at night because the traffic is not there. I think we need to do something about 231 before we even think about doing anything commercially or anything on there, because it's, I hit Fathke Road at 10 after 3 Friday. I didn't get into my driveway till 3:42. And I spent most of the time sitting on 231 between Parish and 41. So you put this in there, they're gonna come through our subdivision. And we do. We just got a couple new neighbors. They have kids, and one's 8 years old. He's not watching. I mean, it's bad to say, but they're not watching. I was the same way when I was 8 years old. Long time ago, but it, you know. The next thing is, what's the benefit to the residents in that subdivision that he's putting us in? What's it gonna help us do? It sounds like it's gonna do more headaches than anything. Are we gonna be able to, I mean, are you gonna sit on your back porch at night and you're gonna have to look at this thing? Are we gonna hide it, or what it is? I think there's too many questions before we even rezone that need to be answered and addressed and taken care of before we rezone it. Because you rezone it, then the next thing is gonna be hurried up and pushed through or whatever, you know. I think we need to take a step back and say, let's look at this a little bit more carefully. And again, I worry about the kids in the neighborhood. Even the dogs. If we walk the dogs, it's a hazard because people are flying through. And 9 times out of 10, you look and they're on their phone trying to get the navigation to see where that road goes in the subdivision. They're not paying attention to what's going on in front of them. You know, so that's my biggest concern right now, the questions.
Okay.
All right?
Mr. Neri, thank you for coming out here tonight.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Sir, friendly reminder, name and address, please.
Ken Kaiser, 10813 Snyder Place. I had passed around a thing from the Hanover Township trustee. He's not in favor of this either. Also, like you said when they were up here, if you change it to commercial, what's to say they're not going to put any kind of commercial in there? 231 from the railroad tracks to Snyder Street doesn't have enough room for a deceleration lane to turn north on Snyder Street. Coming the other way, there's too much traffic coming that way, because I've been seeing it lately. It's backed up from Parrish all the way to 231 trying to go to Crown Point. So the traffic's just getting worse. Like Tim said, there's little kids in the neighborhood now. And if he's going to have to improve roads, he's got to do it all the way around the subdivision, because people are going to use it all the way around the subdivision, not just in front of the business. So I'm thinking safety-wise, and it's not benefiting us at all, and it will lower our property values. Once his business goes out of business and that stuff is sitting there, it's just going to look like a garbage yard. And that's what we're trying to avoid right from the start by not having it zone commercial. Thank you.
Mr. Kaiser, thank you. And just for the board, I'm going to read the letter that he did pass out. It is titled, and thank you for reminding me about this letter. It says, it's from the trustee of Hanover Township, St. John Plan Commission. I'm writing to express my concerns to the proposed zoning change for the property located on 231 and Schneider Place in the Watts subdivision. The homeowners who live in this small subdivision do not want any more development encroaching on and affecting their daily lives. They feel that this development will be detrimental to their area and will cause traffic and safety problems with the traffic entering from 231 and then looping around their neighborhood to exit on Schneider Place to the west and back onto an already heavily traveled 231. They also feel that this development has the potential to lower the property values in this small subdivision. This is a small residential area that already has a large presence of commercial properties to the west. They feel that this request to bring a commercial development into the middle of the residential area on their east side would do irreparable harm to what is left of their neighborhood. And it's signed again, Kevin Toth, Hanover Township trustee. I will accept this on the board. Any other questions or comments from the public? Sergio, did we receive anything besides these 2 handouts electronically?
That's all we received.
All right. Second option, if anyone wants to speak on behalf of this rezone, going once, going twice. Public hearing is now closed. Mr. Kuiper, if I can have you come to the podium again. Mr. Kuiper, I heard several items, maybe you can
I got
address it, or the project manager could address it.
Absolutely.
We talked about traffic, safety, and then, of course, site aesthetics of the facility. So I will turn that over to you, sir.
Yeah, and I always appreciate neighbors coming out and speaking on items. It's important when you're having a project move next door. But a couple of the issues that were brought up, as you stated, were traffic. And again, just because of where the process is, we're at the rezoning stage. There's a lot of things that have to come with subdivision, with site plan, with compliance with the C2 and 231 overlay districts. Inside of those requirements, especially subdivision and site plan, that's where the Plan Commission will make sure that the lighting, the screening, the traffic configuration in and out of the site, and things like that are addressed to make sure that it's okay. On our proposed plan that was up on the screen earlier, you saw that the entrance to the site was before even the first driveway to the west there, to minimize traffic coming in and out of there. We don't anticipate this being a full-on retail store or anything else. This is just for Mr. Lenting's business. The site is only 2 acres, so it's limited in the amount of size of building you can have there, correspondingly parking and everything else. So those, again, traffic, screening, lighting, shielding, all those things would have to be addressed at site plan to the Plan Commission's satisfaction and subdivision approval. Uses were brought up. Again, I can't stress how many uses are cut out by that 231 overlay. So even though the C2 has a lot of permitted uses, the Route 231 overlay eliminates them or moves them over into the special exception category, which again requires approval by the BZA or the Plan Commission in that regard. And then lastly, in the Township Trustees letter, there was a comment about values. Again, I always spoke to that. On the property immediately to these homes anyway of these residents, to the west of there was put in the gas station in particular, the bank coin. You did not see a drop in property values there. You actually saw an increase in that area. So we believe that is an unfounded comment. If there's any I missed, I'm happy to address them, but I think I got them all.
Well, I know with the aesthetics, Sergio, our rule for commercial adjacent to residential, they have to have a 10-foot buffer.
It has to be a buffer established, and then they're in the overlay, 231 overlay.
Want to make
so-
sure that issue, that they understand that if the recommendation goes to the town council, that there are requirements that would require a 10-foot buffer, usually it's landscape, between the residential and the commercial.
Correct.
So-
And there's design standards for the building that have to be adhered to because, again, it's in that Route 231 overlay district.
Sergio, just a quick question. He brought up this site as 2 acres. What's our minimum requirement for commercial?
I'd have to look that up. I
thought it was bigger than 2.
Industrial has 10, but I don't believe there's a minimum requirement for
Yeah,
commercial.
we had an issue at another site where they broke it up into, it was a 5-acre site, but they broke it up like 3.5 and 1.5, and it would need a BZA approval because it wasn't large enough.
It was, it's the parish, I know what you're talking about. They needed a
That's
variance.
because they were leaving a lot. They were taking 2 lots, and they were leaving a lot that wasn't big enough.
No, they had 1 lot, and they were splitting it in half.
It's the
Yeah, but
Martin's Corner edition.
the-
I think
the-
that was in 2021 that we went through, but
The remaining lot, that's what I'm saying, the remaining parcel would not have been big enough to comply with the lot
And
requirements.
I just want to make sure that 2 acres meets that minimum requirement.
Mr. Chair, I'm just reading from our zoning ordinance, commercial districts. For C1 district, the minimum lot area and width is not less than 21,780 square feet and a lot width of not less than 90 feet at the building line.
Do you have C2?
C2 is minimum lot area and width, lot area of not less than 32,000 square feet and a lot width of not less than 90 feet at the building.
Or 3 times that?
Okay, I just want to make, okay, I heard the 2 acres, and then I just remembered what we did. I'm surprised I remember we did that, so, okay.
Mr. Kuiper, say your statement again about retail. You mentioned retail, but I missed the first part.
The plan currently is not to have retail there. It would be like a warehouse kind of thing for Mr. Lenting's business. That's the current plan for it. Obviously, if you zone it, like it's open to anything, but
The
it's
overlay.
severely restricted by the 231 overlay. So almost anything that we want to do there, we're going to have to come back if it's outside of those permitted
Okay.
uses for that.
Because it was mentioned before that he wanted retail there a couple of times. So I'm surprised at your comment that he doesn't want retail, but
Well, it's not going to be like a full-blown like retail store, like, you know, it's going to be open, 8 to 5 or whatever and come, that's not the plan right now. And again, the site isn't big enough with the restrictions off at 231 and your setbacks and everything else to allow, a large commercial retail space.
I'm not sure what retail is, or if it's retail, it's retail, and I'm not sure how you do a partial retail.
Is it like by appointment
I-
only, or?
Yeah, I just don't understand that. It's gonna be I
Yeah,
don't,
all I'm saying is by the site itself, because of the setbacks and everything else, you start putting this box around it, you got berm and screening areas and all these things, and the box becomes really small for what you can use it for. So even if it was full-blown retail, say he abandons use, whatever, if it's full-blown retail, it's gonna be a very small retail if it was. So again, just because of the way the site's laid out and the box gets really small for that building area, there's just not a lot that could be put there.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the overlay district, the US Highway 41 overlay district has a separate standards. Oh, I'm sorry, the 231 district, yes. And I was looking, let me make sure I've got that correct.
24,375.
Different from the ordinance, yeah, the code and the ordinance. Yeah, there's two different codification formats.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately reviewing the old paper copy of our zoning ordinance. So for the Route 231 overlay district, there are additional requirements for the minimum lot size. And, yeah, Section E, minimum tract size, except as provided in the section, the minimum area for a development plan within the Route 231 district is 2 acres. So, Mr. Chairman, you were correct in your recollection of a minimum lot size or tract size in the US 231 overlay district.
Mr. Kuiper, you said this is 2 acres?
Correct.
Okay, so he meets a minimum requirement. Okay. Sergio, can you pull up C2 in the overlay district, what's allowed and not allowed, just so the board has an understanding, and maybe for the general public, of what is eligible? And I'll just tell the board, another example of by, what is it? Oh my God, not Leo's. What's a steak place? They used to be a breakfast right on 41.
So here's the schedule of
Ernie's.
uses
I can run
for
through them if you want.
I'm
Route
just-
231. You could see anything that's blank requires a variance, anything that has SE special exception. Anything that does not have identification would then require a use variance, and then anything with a P is a permitted use. So.
So just understanding, we're hearing what Mr. Lenti wants, and I just want the board to understand. Back by Ernie's to the north, a gentleman came back in, were you on the board then? 6 years, 7 years, 8 years ago? And they wanted to do a car condo. So we changed the zoning of that area to allow for car condos. Well, as you can tell, there's no car condos. But now that property has been rezoned, and now will allow that zoning in that area for car condos. So while we're talking zoning, I just want the board to understand, if this is if the decision of the board's recommendation, it ultimately goes to the town council. If you change it to a C2, or recommend a C2, this is what will be allowed, even though he's proposing retail or title, or a tile store. I just want you to understand that as you're looking at the decision. So of what's allowed, again, our recommendation can come with commitment, or like no drive-throughs, because a drive-in restaurant could be there, a permitted,
kennel.
dog kennel could be there, automotive service is approved, car wash can be in there. So I just want the board to understand how this works, that if it's zoned and Mr. Lenting decides, I don't want to do my retail, then this stays with the property. And Sergio, if I'm going off base, just stop me. I just want you guys to know that. So if there's anyone that you don't like to see, you could always make a commitment letter understanding that his goal is to put his own business in there.
What's the blank? What did Sergio say the blanks were?
It's a use variance.
Okay.
So it'd have to go, yeah.
It's a recommendation from the
BZA.
Board of Zoning Appeals to the town council.
Got it.
Again, recommendation. There are three options. It's favorable recommendation with potential commitments. Unfavorable recommendation, no recommendation. Those then would go to the town council, I would assume, at their next meeting, and then the town council can go along with our recommendation?
No, it would not go to the town council at the next meeting.
I'm sorry, it would go at the
It would go at the next meeting.
next meeting.
Yeah,
Next
because-
month's meeting.
You would have to approve your minutes first.
Next month's meeting, yeah. And then they could accept our recommendation, or they don't have to, so just FYI. Any questions or comments? Mr. Kuiper, for the board, discussion?
Mr. Kennedy, I have a question.
Okay, shoot.
Is it all right to defer it? And I hate to do that to them, but again, to defer it based on answering the questions as to how that pond was created or what happened, and the Army Corps of Engineers apparently talked to him, and then I'd like to see something that is of substance so that, it helps us kind of move a little bit forward. And I'm sorry, you're shaking your head. What does that mean? Is there a fly there?
So that would not be something to defer the matter on.
Oh.
That would be something to potentially hold up the subdivision approval based upon soil conditions and buildings and things like that. But you have criteria to evaluate the zone change request. And based upon that, you can make your recommendation or not.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, Mr. Kuiper is correct in that the consideration of the Plan Commission tonight for a change in the zone maps, the Plan Commission must pay reasonable regard to the comprehensive plan, current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in the district, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and responsible development and growth. There is some subjectivity to each member's interpretation of those items. But I would tend to agree that whether or not there was a permit or a letter, written in 2016 or 2017 to Mr. Lenting is probably not
We have
among
zoning
those
maps.
considerations for purposes of the rezoning.
Okay.
Tim, what did you say about 2 and 6? So current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in each district. Like, I get this is on 231. Commercial is preferred, I guess, because it's on the overlay district, but there is residential right in front of that. So to me, the way I feel is, as far as number 2 is concerned, the current condition is residential. There's homes there. I certainly wouldn't want to, have some type of commercial building be built in front of my house. So I'm stuck on 2, and then I'm stuck on 6 too.
I'm sorry, what's 6?
6 is the public health, safety, comfort, morals, convenience, and the general welfare of the town of St. John.
And that's not actually a statutory requirement, but I can deal with that anyway. But on
Okay.
2, with the current conditions and structures and uses, yes, it is residential. You have to take that into consideration when you're doing something. So if you were to allow or favorable recommendation for the C2, there are things in place to protect that residential via the berm, the screening, and those other things, and that's where the site plan and subdivision things come in later. These uses are compatible next to each other, but if you were to take it that if it's residential, you can't have any commercial next to it, the whole town would be residential, you'd never have this. And literally like 500 feet away, the town previously said all these requirements are met when they rezoned that property on the corner of 231 and 41, allowing for a gas station, for the bank building, for coin, that butt directly up next to this, and to these residences. And again, they had to go through the subdivision process. They had to go through the site plan. They had to go through all these things to make sure that those screening and other requirements are being met so that you do have that compatibility of the uses and minimizing that impact there. Your item 6 had to do with general welfare. Again, based upon what we're proposing, I don't believe that there's going to be any impact to general welfare there. If there were, again, that would have already occurred with the current commercial that's located at 41 and 231. The traffic considerations through there and everything else, and those are way more intense uses than anything that's proposed for this much smaller site.
This is our zoning map.
And I appreciate what Mr. Kuiper's saying, but if what's being proposed doesn't necessarily have to be that if it's changed to C2.
Right.
So if we want to reduce any traffic, if that's the direction of the board, I think you need to make some commitments of like no drive-throughs. We need to really button it up. If not, as you saw, a car wash can go in there.
And a lot of other things that are there. Even if there's no permitted use, the BZA can always approve it. I mean, who knows,
Right.
right? So,
There's a much higher standard to meet at the BZA, and I've not been overly successful at that level. I'm just throwing that out there, and Mr. Kennedy can vouch for me on that
Oh,
one.
these two guys. No, not me. I'm off. They got me. All right. So again, I'll bring it back to the board. Again, additional questions, comments? If not, we have 3 options for motion. Favorable, unfavorable, no recommendation. And then if, depending on the motion that is made, please reference the finding of facts. And then if you could fill in blank for number 1 and 2 under items 1 through 6, where it says the proposal, I would appreciate that.
I want to make a unfavorable recommendation to the town council for Artesian Wells, Plat D, part of Lot 6.
I have an unfavorable recommendation. Bob, would you reference finding of facts and then fill in, read those 2 sentences for me with the appropriate verbiage?
That the above proposal will not promote the public health, safety, comforts, morals, convenience, and general welfare of the town of St. John. Number 2, that the above proposal will not conserve property values throughout the jurisdiction of the town of St. John, Lake County, Indiana.
I have a motion I have an unfavorable recommendation. Is there a second?
Seconded.
I got a second by Joe. Comments, discussion before the board? Roll call, please, Sergio.
Bob Rolson,
Yes.
Ilana Cardona,
yes.
John Gill,
Yes.
Joe Gomestego,
Yes.
Bob Valois,
Yes.
Jenna Lordson, John Kennedy.
Yes, unfavorable recommendation carries 7-0.
Thank you, Planning Commission members.
Thank you, Mr. Kuiper. Everyone's more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but the public hearing is closed. We're not as entertaining as Netflix, but. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll give a little break while they exit, just so, or no, we
I
don't.
need one.
Okay. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, or 2-minute break, 2 minute.
She got so mad when
Oh,
no.
Oh, I thought it was kicking your behind. No, I'm sorry.
glad my head wasn't there. She was smashed.
I was gonna vote against your motion.
Were you really? Why?
Commercial belongs there. But I was only
Yeah,
gonna,
but-
I would only approve commercial if we put all that commitment down, like no driving.
I'm learning.
Because I'm afraid of
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Basically taking.
You gotta teach me.
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
Zoning ordinance doesn't have any additional criteria, at least
Well,
based on
these
what
aren't-
I reviewed. It's possible that back 20 years ago, some additional requirements. I don't think that. So this may need to be updated and then its findings of fact, just identify why they come back. Short-sighted in that, for example, a member could say, I find because the proposal is not consistent. I think that, at least, I mean, it was discussed. That, clearly, I think would be the strongest.
This is, I agree.
Position as far as findings. Yeah, now it was discussed. And clearly, I think.
Are we on
From our perspective.
I don't know what the hell.
Are we still on TV?
I know, but you're right. But I did.
Current conditions and character of structures, or it's not.
You're right. When you said, would you vote, I was like.
Which land is adapted, conservation of property values. Proposal is not.
That's a really bad topic, man.
Conservation of property values throughout.
no, he's pouncing on us. It's like, oh, they're taking too long, I'm out.
Petitioner
Watch all
didn't
this
say-
work for unfavorable recommendation, and the town council's like, oh yeah, put whatever you want in there.
Seen that, the judge just asked for it.
All right, everyone. We're all back on play?
I think we should give some.
All right. St. John Commons, Phase 2. This is a proposed final plat of St. John Commons, Phase 2, commercial building. They recommended acceptance of performance letter of credit, surety bond. And is Mr. Reddick.
Good evening, Doug Reddick, DVG. Brad Lambert, the owner of St. John Commons, is also present here tonight. We are seeking final plat approval. There was some discussion at the study session, trying to get some forgiveness on the letter of credit amount, or actually delaying the amount of the letter of credit. But after that meeting, it was decided to not pursue that, and he has posted a letter of credit for the full amount, $560-some thousand, as I recall. 558. And that letter of credit was given to the town, I believe, this morning. So with that in hand, I believe everything else is in order for final plat approval for St. John Commons Phase 2.
Right, just for the board's pleasure, I have a letter here from Robinson Engineering. It says St. John Commons Phase 2 PUD final secondary plat review. I like that word, final. Dear Plan Commission, as requested, Robinson Engineering has reviewed the final secondary plat for the above referenced projects and had the following comments. Items received, St. John Commons Phase 2 PUD final plat by DVG team dated 2/17/23. Cost, St. John Commons Phase 2 summary estimate received from DVG Inc. as received from Brad Lambert dated 4/21/23. Description, Phase 2 includes 1 mixed-use lot with the intended use of 2 commercial buildings and 2 mixed-use office, service, and condo living buildings on a total of 5.65 plus minus acre zone PUD. The approved primary plat was a single phase that included a mixed-use lot 16 that is now shown as Lot 1 on the final plat as a separate phase. The final plat adds Phase 2 to this project name. We offer the following comments. We have reviewed the final plat and find it to be satisfactory. The development fee is $14,464. This fee is 2% of the construction cost. An application fee was not previously paid for Phase 2, so there is no reduction. Item 2, it's highlighted, it's been paid. Item 3, the public improvements are not complete. An irrevocable letter of credit shown to be submitted to the town in the amount of $558,933 to ensure the improvements will be completed. We have it's been marked, have LOC. And if you should have any questions, please contact John at Robinson Engineering. So everything's been paid, they have the letter of credit, and we have a final review letter that states it to be satisfactory. Questions or comments for Mr. Reddick? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat of St. John Commons Phase 2.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bob Valoy. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, shoot. Do I need to read the reference?
Oh,
Oh,
I do.
let's just hold it. Who made the motion?
I did.
Can you just reference finding a fact?
Oh, well, you can break it up into two different motions too, if you need to, but
Okay.
as far as findings.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Can you do a secondary motion referencing the finding of facts for,
I make a motion to accept the findings of fact for the final plat approval of St. John Commons Phase 2.
I got a motion by Jenna. Is there a second to accept those?
Second.
Second by Bob Valoy. Comments, questions? Good catch, Bob, by the way.
Does she have to read them?
No, we'll just reference finding of fact.
Okay.
You're good with that, Adam? Just
Yeah, I
reference,
am,
yeah.
but do you also have to make a recommendation to the council at all for the surety or?
Letter of credit, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I got all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 7-0. And then we also need to make a recommendation for the town council to accept a letter of credit, oh man, in the amount of $558,933. And that number is 558933, 558. If I can get a motion for recommendation for town council to accept.
Make a motion for a favorable recommendation to the town council, letter of credit for St. John Commons Phase 2 PUD in the amount of $558,933.
You got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bob Valoy. Bob Burleson made the motion. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. One quick question. Do we not need to be at the town council meeting for that? Typically, I wouldn't think we would need to be there.
I don't believe
Council-
so. I don't
Councilman, do
disagree
you
with that.
usually, for acceptance of a letter of credit, do you require the petitioner to be there to talk on it?
Typically not.
Not really. All right.
Thank you very much.
You might want to just double check, make a phone call, make sure you,
Talk.
yeah, so,
Will do. Thank you.
thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have amendment to preliminary plat for lot 18 through 26 of the Continental Unit 3, part of the original 55 acres of Continental. Mr. Slager, good evening.
Good evening, Jack Slager with Schilling Development. To bring you up to speed on this, we were here last month and conducted the public hearing for this preliminary plat amendment. We were taking what was originally 9 lots on a cul-de-sac of the preliminary plat for Continental and shifting some lot lines around to create 5 one-acre lots. At the public hearing was opened and closed with no comments from any neighbors. And the question was brought up regarding a potential for a looped water main rather than a dead-end water main. We did work with the staff over the course of the last month to come up with a solution for that. And so we will be looping the water main around the cul-de-sac. And so I think that was basically the only issue that we came up with last month. So we're seeking preliminary plat or an amendment to the preliminary plat for Continental Unit 3.
Questions, comments from Ms. Flager? Bob, have those discussions happened? Commitment's been made?
Yes, he had a discussion with Bob Davis, Public Works Director, today, and I think everything was worked out.
Yeah.
Adam, do we need anything in writing? I mean, I know it's.
You've got, the engineering drawings were submitted to the town, so you have engineering drawings with the revision with the new water main, so.
Gotcha, okay. Just then for the board, I do have a letter here from Robinson Engineering, Continental Unit 3, replat PUD, plat review, primary plat review. Is this final, John? This is final?
This is final.
Final? Okay,
Yeah.
this is final. Dear Planning Commission, as requested, Robinson Engineering has reviewed the primary preliminary plat for the above referenced project and had the following comments. Continental primary plat PUD by DVG team dated 2/2023. We offer the following comments. Unit 3 is part of the original 55 acres of the Continental PUD. Unit 3 includes 9 lots and 1 outlot. The Unit 3 replat involves the 9 lots numbered 8, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26 being combined into 5 lots renumbered as 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 for the purpose of enlarging the total lot area of each. We have reviewed the primary preliminary plat and find it to be satisfactory. Should you have any questions, please contact me at your convenience. John from Robinson Engineering. This is a approve, deny, defer. Making that motion, please reference the finding of facts that is attached to the last page of our packet.
Want to make a motion to approve Continental Unit 3 and findings of fact.
I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat referencing the finding of fact. Is there, by Bob Brilson, is there a second?
Second.
Who got it?
John did.
I got a second by John Gill. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the Preserve Phase 6 release, request for release of performance surety for the preserves. This is Phase 6, 69 single-family residential lots and 2 outlots at White Oak Avenue.
Good evening, Jack Slager again with Schilling Development. This one actually caught me a little off guard. I didn't know it was going to be on here until I got the agenda this afternoon. I don't know if we're ready for this full request yet. We did conduct a site inspection last week, and we got a punch list on Friday. So we have a number of items that we need to remedy, and I think we probably just want to request a deferral till the next month.
We have a request for a deferral. Is there a motion as such?
I'll make a motion to defer.
I got a motion by Bob Volote to defer. Is there a second?
Second it.
Wait, second by John Gill. Questions, comments? I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? Was anybody questioning, comment? Okay. Hearing none, I have a motion and a second. All in favor for deferral, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Sublime Estates, acceptance of 2-year maintenance bond for Sublime Estates, 6 single-family residential lots at the intersection of 93rd and Carmonte? Monte Drive?
Claremont?
Oh,
Claremont.
my God.
It sounded fancier the other way.
Wow.
Claremonte.
Carmonte.
Oh, oui.
I want Bob to pronounce his last name.
Claremont.
Pronounce your last name, for the
Valois.
record.
Me?
Yeah.
Valois.
Valois. I call him Valois. Forget the S. All right, Mr. Reddick, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Similar to what Jack just said, I wasn't sure this was going to be on the agenda until I got this this afternoon. I did.
Just like to keep you guys on your toes.
I know.
That's all, man. We're just trying to keep you on your toes.
We appreciate that. I did reach out to Mike Granissi, the owner of Sublime Homes, talked to him about 6 o'clock tonight. He indicated that his office and Jenna's office have been communicating regarding this, and we're very, very close to resolution. I think is a good way to put it. I think it'll be on for the next meeting, is that right?
So deferral.
Yep.
All right. We have a request for deferral. Is there a motion as such?
So moved.
By John Gill. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bob Burleson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Seeing or hearing none? Public comment? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.